Well, good morning. Here we are. I'm going to lean in for a moment. Back again, Mirador Television, broadcasting out of the White Hart Hotel in the county town of Lewes. And two young guests here who actually are doing something that I don't really approve of. They were looking for the well in the bar. And you know how I see water. Oh dear, no! It dilutes the alcohol. But, so what a place to have a well in a bar.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is Will.
Hi.
And Orla.
Hello.
And you're from Kent.
I am.
I'm from Devon originally.
Ah, really? Yeah. So spread around the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell us because this is about you now. Tell us what you're doing here, and what are you on holiday, or are you an adventure of some sort? Or
My cousin got married yesterday at Pelham House.
ah, right.
Yes, but there wasn't enough rooms, so we stayed here, which has worked out really well, actually.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
It's a very interesting pub, this.
It is a very interesting old hotel, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's about 500 years old, and lots of things have happened in here over the years. But we were just talking about the fact that Tom Paine spent a lot of time here. And the interesting thing is that he used to drink at the Star Hotel. Sorry, yes, the Star Hotel over the road, the Crown Hotel. And he would go into the bar and he would button anybody and say, "Let me tell you about the rights of man." And they all went to the pub landlord and said, "If he comes in here one more time and takes us away from our drink, we're all going to leave." So they barred him. And over he came here and made it famous.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right, so you're here for a wedding.
Yeah.
And actually, the Pelham House, well, it's sort of a hotel wedding venue now, is equally as old and as famous as here. And in fact, if you look at the over there, you can see TP. And a lot of people think that means Tom Paine. But in fact, it's not. It's Tom Pelham. Because Tom Pelham built this place as a house and then went and bought where you were for the wedding, Pelham House, just down there.
Oh, very nice.
And the name Pelham is very, very well known here. And then if you, I don't know whether you've got time to wander around, but if you wander up to the church at the Bottleneck, which is about 100 yards from here, there is an effigy of a knight on the wall, and that was Nicholas Pelham.
Okay.
And during the 100 Years' War, the French used to come over and they used to raid this coast and chop people's heads off. Pretty nasty stuff, actually. But Nick Pelham was the local squire, so he had his own little army. So off he trotted down to Seaford and he took on the French and beat them. So he became a national hero, and he's buried in that church up there, and there's this effigy on the wall to
maybe
him.
we should have a little look.
Yeah. Are you here for any length of time?
Not really.
No, I think we've got to check out at 11.
Yeah, check out the hotel, but what about the town?
No, going back to Brighton today.
Are you?
Yeah, that's where the married couple are from. Well, not from, that's where they live. So we're going to go see them there. Yeah.
Right. Now tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I'm from farming backgrounds in Devon.
Right.
Right in the middle of the countryside, middle of nowhere. I went up to London after I graduated uni and hated it.
Yeah.
I hated London.
Yeah. Too close, too claustrophobic for me. I need a bit of.
Well, you were in City of.
Yeah, I was City of. Yeah, right in the middle with all the bankers, and didn't like it. So
okay, when did you graduate?
6 months. Did business management at Reading, and and then And now I'm here.
So you're wandering around a bit at the moment, or have you started on a career?
I'm not trying to find a job. I'm trying to find purpose.
In other words, the meaning of what you would do?
Doing with John Payne at the moment. Is it Tom? No,
Tom Payne.
Tom Payne. Never.
Yeah, trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And you, Ola?
So we met at Reading, where I graduated in English literature.
Right.
And then when I finished, I'd been working a 0-hour contract at a retail store. So when I finished, they asked if I wanted to be the store manager, which I thought was a really good idea, but it didn't turn out to be a very good idea. So then I applied for a job in PR, in press. So that's what I'm doing at the moment in London. But I'm in West London, I'm in Shepherd's Bush. So it's definitely not as busy.
Right.
It doesn't feel as...
Well, I've been a journalist for most of my life, but,
Oh, really?
but I was assigned to Northern Ireland. And when I was there, British Airways asked me if I would do the PR for them. So for 10 years, I was PR for British Airways.
Oh, nice.
It was nice. I got to fly on Concorde 6 times, and most people never did on it once. So it's a good choice of career. It's an interesting one.
Yes,
definitely. I'm a great believer in communications. I don't want to be in anything else.
Yeah.
But then, as you can tell, I'm pretty ancient. So
No.
I've been lucky for most of my life.
Yeah.
When you were at Reading, did you go down to Surrey-on-Thames at all?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful little village.
Beautiful.
To where?
Sonning.
Sonning. Oh, we love
Yeah.
Sonning. Yeah.
Well, in that middle mill stream island, I spent most of my summers when I was at school.
Aww.
And it was just lovely in those days. Well, it's still lovely now.
It's still really nice. Yeah.
It's
We used to, whenever it was sunny, we'd go. We used to swim in the
mill pond.
river.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah,
I mean, that mill is now. It was a working mill when I was a boy, but now it's a little
theatre production.
theatre. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Very
used to
nice.
park there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we'd walk over to the little bit with the bridge.
Did you go into the French Horn at all?
No, I really wanted to.
Is it French Horn?
Yeah, it's further on. There's the Copper Club.
Yeah.
But then further on, just near the mill, there's the French Horn.
Okay.
Stunning, really nice.
Yes.
And when did I thought you should go for your. I remember your parents were coming. Yeah.
Somebody was asking me. I don't know how we got onto it, but I said somebody in the hotel industry, "Have you ever been to the French Horn?" And I said, when you walk in through the door, there's a big fire going and a spit, and there's always sort of a chicken or something turning there, ready to be served to whoever goes in.
Wow.
You like that.
Very, very old-fashioned. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, we didn't end up going. It's a really nice building as well, isn't it?
Oh yes, it is.
Yeah.
Beautiful, and once again, very ancient. I mean, that's the one thing that I quite like about ancient buildings is they got character.
Yeah.
I'm not a great man for glass and steel.
No. But your house is very old, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 Like the one in Devon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my granddad had a look into the history of it, and it dates back to 1066, the Doomsday Book.
Oh, it's in the Doomsday Book.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But not the house as it stands at the moment. Just some of the foundations are still there, but and it listed all the animals and all the people on the land and whatever. And it's very interesting how many pigs you have.
Absolutely, to read the Doomsday Book is fascinating. Yeah, I keep a copy of the Doomsday Book at home because quite often, particularly in this work, I mean, since we've just been doing this rather small, what we call a potty and eccentric television operation, is all sorts of things come up, and it's great to be able to sort of see if it was there. For instance, we have a race course here that is the last race was in 1964 or something of the sort. But if you ever read Graham Greene's Brighton Rock, there is a chapter in it about gangs from London coming down and attacking the bookies. And it says at Brighton Race Course, but in fact he modelled it on a real life incident that happened on Lewes Race Course, and 2 policemen rounded up 30 thugs from London. Good place not to be. And brought them down here and threw them into the jug and the gangs brought coachloads of people down to try and intimidate the judge and so on and so forth, who refused to be intimidated, and then ended the gang warfare. I don't know whether you've seen Peaky Blinders. Have you? Yeah. Well, they were Peaky Blinder type gangs, and they were ended here in Lewes at the race course.
That's a good end.
So, what are your plans now? Where are you going today after here?
So we're going to meet with your parents.
Yeah.
In a couple of minutes. At Pembroke. Is it Pembroke?
No, Pelham.
Pembroke.
Pembroke's where your grandma used to live.
Pelham House.
Yeah.
And meet up with them for another breakfast.
Yeah, second breakfast.
Where are your parents from?
My dad is from Ireland. That's where most of my dad's side of the family is from. Well, naturally. And my mum is from Nottingham. Well, Newark, so between Nottingham and Lincoln.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're an old Devon family, obviously.
Yeah. Always in Devon.
Yeah. Ireland is north or south?
South.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereabouts, you know?
Offaly.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
A tiny little village called Tubber. We go over quite a bit.
Yeah, I spent 15 years in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, but we'd often disappear down below the border and have a nice, quiet, calm part of Ireland.
Yeah.
And I had relatives down there as well.
Yeah.
So they're still in Ireland, or?
A lot of them. So a lot of them have flown over for the wedding. So I think who's here? My auntie, because he's one of 7. So my auntie's here, and then Aidan splits his time, and then the rest are in Ireland. So we've got a lot of cousins in Ireland.
Right now, who was married here in Lewes, and why were they married in Lewes?
My cousin, so my auntie's daughter. Yeah, my auntie's daughter. They live in Brighton. So my auntie's always, well, not always, but since they were like 18, basically everyone came over because it was quite hard to get a job in Ireland. So everyone came over and were around the Kent area, London, Gravesend, around Kent. And then my auntie and my dad stayed, and everyone else sort of dribbled back home as they were having children.
Right.
But Dad met Mum. Mum wanted to stay here. She wasn't interested in living in Ireland. So they stayed here. So Megan, my cousin, got married, grew up in London, and then lives in Brighton now with her husband.
Right. She is married in Lewes, but she lives in Brighton.
Yeah.
Right.
I think they just found the venue, and they really liked it. Yeah.
Yeah. So was the wedding in Lewes?
Yes. Yeah. So it was in. They just had they didn't do a church. They had a civil ceremony in
Not Pembroke.
Pelham House. Yeah. It's very short, wasn't it? Oh no, you weren't there for that one. Sorry.
No,
you missed the serious bit, did you?
Yeah.
Just here for the booze. Actually, in the church just up the road at the bottleneck near the castle, it was built in about 1120. It's quite old, and Tom Paine was actually married there, and he was a customs officer here. And if you walk up the high street, you'll also see something called Bull House, which is where he lived. At least he lodged there, and he married the boss's daughter. And sort of said, "Let's pop across the road and let's get married," which they did. And then I think immediately fell out.
Oh no!
Not a great success.
Well, it'd be quite easy for us to get married because Will's mum's a vicar.
Oh, really?
She does marriages, and my mum is she works in libraries and registrations, so she does the weddings as well, the civil ceremonies.
Was that an invitation?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. That was a
Yeah.
Well, a very handsome couple, if I may say so.
Thank you.
But will you be a farmer's wife?
I make a good go of it sometimes.
Yeah.
How many
Churn
acres
the
have you
butter.
got?
Not a whole lot, because my dad's a dentist. So we started doing the farming as he's moving into retirement. He's 50 and he wants to start farming, going into retirement. So he's cutting back on the dentistry and going more into the farming. So we got a few cows.
The cows are your brothers, aren't they? Yeah.
Sheep, horses, chickens.
Yeah. He's got a younger brother, Sammy, who's how old is Sammy now? 11.
Yeah.
And he saved up what he used to sell the eggs.
Sell the eggs from the chickens.
Yeah, sell the eggs from the chickens, which what was it? It was £2.50 a box, something.
£2.50 for
one.
For 6.
For 6.
And then
£5 for 2.
No, £6 for 12.
So everyone said, "Oh, I'll just have 2 boxes of one."
Yeah. That's the sort of economics of the shop alike.
But he saved up all that money, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then, I'm sure he got help, but then he bought the cows.
Yeah.
Got 2 really nice cows.
Yeah.
I actually, we never farmed when we were in Northern Ireland for about 5 years. We lived on the farm. It was being farmed by other people, but particularly in the Ulster countryside, there are no lights or anything, and to see the sky without light pollution, it was really magnificent. Are you in a remote area or
very remote area?
Right. Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. Lovely sky.
Yeah, it's quite nice because my dad, they grew up in rural Ireland as well, and they didn't have a farm, but they live in the house that they had. They had to do the farm work with whoever they were renting the house from. I think that was the trade. So I think he really likes that you farm now. He likes to tell Will about how they used to live off the land and yeah.
But in business management, where will you cite yourself?
Who knows? Who knows my next step? But just gonna have to think about it.
You're not with a firm or anything at the moment?
No. I'm a free agent.
He only left the last job recently.
Yeah.
And the last job was in London?
Yeah, in London. Yeah.
I knew the city quite well because I worked for Reuters for quite a long time.
Okay.
And in fact, the lady that's joining me this morning I was the London anchor for an American program called Morning Business Report, and she was the New York anchor. And that was way back in 1990, and we've stayed friends and colleagues and worked together ever since. They were halcyon days for us. Well, lovely. Thank you so much for agreeing to come and have a little chat.
Thank you for having us.
One of the things is that I think it's in Yorkshire. They say that there's nauters daftest people, but the fact is it's nauters interesting as folk. So those people that are tuned in at this hour in the morning, actually, there aren't too many right now while we're live, but of course it goes throughout the day and picks up. So there'll be several hundred who will actually view you at some stage during the day, and several thousand over the months ahead. But you're 2 very interesting young people, and
thank you very much.
we wish you all the luck in the world, and forging ahead. And thank God you didn't say, "Oh, I want to be a waitress."
Me.
Well, one of the things that disturbs me a great deal is we try to help by having students come and work with us. And if they didn't actually come to us, there's 90% of people in media studies and journalism and that sort of thing end up behind a bar.
Yeah.
Which is rather sad.
It's hard work to get into. I got very lucky. It's a culture and communications agency. And they were good to take me on.
Great.
Train me up.
Lovely. Okay.
Very much.
Well, it's good to see you, and I will move you around a little bit,
there we go.
if you don't mind, and just if you'll stay there half a second. I love this one because it's a little sting in the tail. Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps. Well, there you are. As usual, a little bit of fun, particularly as it's a Friday morning and TGIF. So what we will do now, in waiting for, no, we won't. I know what we're going to do now. I apologise. What we're going to do is actually we've been showing episodes of our acclaimed documentary, The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town, and we said that we would actually show episode 4 again, which is all about the race course. So that's what we'll do. We will go to the Lewes Race Course. Vroom, vroom. The other day I felt a warmth between myself and Mole and Ratty, the two little characters from Wind in the Willows, as I sat on the banks of the River Ouse and let it drift by. Vroom, vroom. Today I feel more like Toad of Toad Hall, the animal that was always getting himself into trouble because of his excesses. Vroom. But horsepower is the essence of this episode, because horses played a central part in the history of Lewes. And as might be expected, were often at the centre of violence, adding to the history of a bloody town. Horses, of course, were nothing unique to Britain. Cavalry had been a major part of warfare, and peaceful farming from time to time immemorial. But for Lewes in early times, they were an important part of its economy. The Domesday Book, the first ever audit of England in 1086, records that anyone selling a horse in Lewes should pay to the reeve or estate manager a penny. The buyer also paid a penny. So a horse tax was in place more than 1,000 years ago. And so the horse took centre stage from the earliest of Norman times. I've shown you the tilting grounds where knights on horseback tried to unseat each other. But that was nothing compared to the violence that Lewes races brought to the town. But I get ahead of myself. Lewes was one of the most famous race courses in history until 1965. The fourth oldest in the country, racing began in 1727, although some argue there is evidence it was 26 years before that.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Lewes. It's the final race meeting here at Lewes, Monday, September the 14th, 1964. The ground is firm and the wind is straight across the course. The runners for the first race, the Cookmere Apprentices Handicap, are on their way to the start. Saucy Lad representing Tom Masson in the purple with the gold star. Number 11 is Nimberg. And away they go. They're off and racing, and Buzz made a bright start there and leads in the early stages. And now a little bit of a rise as they race past the mile marker and head towards the right-hand turn, which will bring them into the home straight. Closing stages with less than 100 yards left to travel. It's Buzz pulling clear, and Buzz goes on to win by about 3 lengths to Misty River in second, Saucy Lad back in third, Great Lady, Nimberg Wave, Methane, the Wolf, and St. Kieran.
In that year, after almost 300 years of horse racing, it closed down for good, mainly because it had no electricity, no running water, in fact, no facilities at all. Yet in the late 18th century, it attracted royalty, the big gamblers of the day, and it produced some champion racehorses over the years that brought great races and great feats to an otherwise pretty but blustery track atop the Downs. Considered by racing folk as the greatest racehorse of all time, Eclipse raced there in 1769. The Derby winner of 1793, Waxy, was a Lewes-trained horse, as was Charlottetown in 1966. Great jockeys rode there, such as Lester Piggott and Gordon Richards. And Barry, you've, although it started in 1720 or so, you weren't here then, but you were, as a very young boy, involved in this racecourse.
Yeah, I certainly was, yeah. I'd say I was born on race day, 29th of August 1950. My mum's side of the family were all racing people, going back hundreds of years probably, so, you know, my gran used to take us up here.
It's very quiet and serene today, so what was it like on race days up here?
Very, very noisy. Hustle and the bustle of coaches coming up here, cars. I mean, all these places over here were car parks. You had all the horse boxes, the tote men, tic-tac men shouting the odds and everything else. Lots of entertainment going on, you know, and it was very, very busy. A 4-mile race, which started right down the bottom of the hill there. The horses used to run right round there as far as you can see, and come back down here to the winning post.
Right.
They used to have 2 winning posts. They used to have a 5 furlong winning post and a 6 furlong winning post. But what they wanted to, what they did, they made the 6 furlong winning post another furlong away from the stand, because they both wanted to start them on the straight. Otherwise it was unfair, so they had a straight run.
Right.
In 1914, I think it was 14, they shut that down because they found it was too dangerous. And not only that, for the horses to get up that hill. They used to start them from here, they run them down there, round the loop and back again. And that made 4 miles, but it had to be like the best out of 3 or something.
Right.
So some of them horses run 12 miles just to win a race. They had 10 minutes break, they got back after about 9 or 10 minutes, they'd have a bucket of water, drink and wash down, and back they used to go again. After a while, it just phased out a little bit. It used to be a 3-day meeting in August, and then it got to that it was just going to be a day a year. And it got to the stage where it was just one race, and all the horses in that race were trained in Lewes. And the guy that wrote about it, you know, he said this is probably going to be the last day.
There are many in Lewes who are still resentful that the course was closed. It brought a good deal of cash to the town. Lewes had many racing stables, and a thriving racing community numbered as many as 60 establishments. But perversely, it was responsible for cleaning up the sport, despite suffering a bout of violence. The early part of the 20th century saw the rise of vicious gangs around the country. These gangs often fought each other, but to keep cash in their pockets, targeted race courses. They would secretly ease their way into courses and then meet up to viciously attack and rob bookies. Racegoers, and even jockeys. They were feared at race meetings throughout Britain. And so it was on a June afternoon in 1936. London villain James Spinks and his gang turned up at Lewes for an attack on bookies. They gathered, some 30 strong, on the edge of the racecourse, ready to pounce. And pounce they did. They attacked and savagely beat a bookie and managed to rob him. But not known to them, 2 CID officers had been posted in the grounds. The 2 detectives alerted their fellow coppers and raced towards the gang. According to some reports, a rival gang got into the act and all hell broke loose. It must have been some sight. Villains scattering in all directions. Keystone cops were in full chase, and the excited racegoers panicked and dived for cover. But it was the police on this day at Lewes Race Course who passed the winning post. They managed to nick 16 of the gang, took them to Lewes, where they were sentenced to long prison terms. That put an end to the decades-old practice of course hijacking by these fearless and vicious gangs. A real feather in the cap of the Lewes coppers, nabbed. Pulling you aside, locals will whisper in your ear that Graham Greene's Brighton Rock was really about Lewes Race Course. They say the gang fight in his novel was based on the events of Lewes in 1936. To think that Peaky strode this course, what a ghost to have here now. Peaky wasn't in the pub, that's for sure, but I bet you he wouldn't have bought me a drink anyway. Talking of betting, the Prince Regent helped pack the crowds into Lewes Race Course. The high and the mighty liked rubbing shoulders with him, and the humble and lowly liked rubbernecking. Accurate figures weren't kept in those early days, but estimates vary that crowds reached between 10 and 20,000 spectators. That was on special race days. The course also provided national champions, and one horse is buried here along with his rider, galloping the old Lewes Race Course in perpetuity. But the love of horses by the Prince Regent could well have resulted in his early demise. He was a betting man and a daredevil. As I've mentioned, the future king drove a coach and four down this street. There is no written evidence that the story is strong enough for this sign to be erected by the local council. The prince was often in Lewes, and a renowned gambler was part of his inner circle. Sir John Larday, a successful racehorse owner, lived in Lewes, was colourful, resided on the High Street, and was a gambler and horseman. His wife Letitia was equally as colourful. Accomplished coach driver, she had been the mistress of a convicted highwayman. The Prince, Sir John and their circle were notorious enough from their lifestyle as it was. But hell-raising Sir John went down in history for a wager in Brighton. He bet a larger and heavier man that he could carry him piggyback over Steen. When the man showed up, Larday insisted the man stripped naked because the bet didn't include carrying his clothes. This was the street that the Prince Regent drove his coach and four down. I tried walking up it. That's tough enough. But coming down is impossible. So speculation has it that it was Larday, or perhaps even his fascinating wife, who urged the prince to make the bet. History records that he won the bet, not on any betting slip, but because the prince went on to become King George IV. In an earlier episode, we took a look at the castle tilting ground. Tilting, or trying to knock an opponent off a horse, was originally military training. But later it became sport. Knights won large purses in tournaments and won accolades from ladies for their prowess. Ordinary folk couldn't compete. They were forced to be spectators, but they had their own violent sport in the form of folk football. This precursor to our modern game raged across the countryside with whole villages chasing a pig's bladder. It was so violent that kings from the 13th to the 17th century tried to ban it. But I digress. Tilting, of course, involved horses. And it was a sport that eventually gave way to a calmer pastime. The Lewes tilting ground became a bowling green in 1640. Not a horse in sight. But typical of Lewes It still plays the game the way Sir Francis Drake played it. And it is said gave inspiration to Tom Paine to write his Rights of Man after playing here. The horse has never really disappeared from history. Fox hunting is recorded in Sussex in the late 18th century. But in Lewes, a traditional meeting of huntsmen on Boxing Day didn't begin until the early 20th century. Now, each year, the Southdown and Erridge huntsmen gather on Boxing Day ready to ride to hounds. As you might expect, this occasion has contributed to violence on Lewes High Street. Protesters have turned up for decades to protect the killing of foxes. It is now, of course, against the law to kill foxes this way. But it doesn't stop the protesters. Lewes is still a rural country town, so thousands turn out to cheer the riders down the high street. Clashes are inevitable, and each year they occur. No deaths, but the odd bloody nose, as being in a bloody tiny town. When the hunt meets outside and there are loads of protesters in balaclavas and so on, who strides out with a syrup cup, the tray held in the air, and offers a drink to the huntsman? It's Cliff. How does it feel going out to face the mob?
Well, I suppose it can be quite scary at times, but I kind of feel that it's very necessary to keep the tradition going, as the master of the house has done this for about 150 years or so. And I've just trotted out for the 29th year, and the 29th time, with the stirrup cup for the Southdown and Erridge hunt.
So and you always do it, it's always you. Yeah.
It's something God willing, I'd like to keep going.
Well, you've got a cheering section in me, because I'm always there saying, "Go, Cliff, go!" I think it doesn't matter which side I take. It's a very brave thing to go out, and tradition is tradition, and it should be maintained.
I totally agree with that. And there's about 3,000 people out there cheering you on, so it's rather nice.
Now, when we're talking about horses, I mean, this is an old coaching inn.
Yes, well, it became an inn, a coaching inn, about 300 years ago. And I was doing a little study some years ago when I was looking at previous owners from that time. And within that 300-year period, I've just found out that I'm the longest standing owner in the whole period, in the whole time.
Yeah.
So, with 28 years to my name.
For many years, this town, like many in England, had horse-drawn vehicles of bread and milk delivered by horse-drawn cart. But remember the past and 63 pubs in Lewes. Yes, you've guessed it, so was beer. And it still is. So deep is the horse embedded in Lewes society that the remaining town brewery, Harvey's, still delivers its products in a horse-drawn dray. And it tastes all the better for it. Well, every other Tuesday you deliver in a very traditional way, do you not?
We do. We have our horse and dray wandering around the streets of Lewes. Lewes not very kind to horses, very steep hill, but they manage very well. And it's a marvellous attraction. I mean, it's a good tourist attraction, and I think the town have taken the horses to their hearts.
Well, I think that's very true. Yeah, I mean, they're magnificent creatures. So I'm closing this episode on a relatively modern phenomenon. Horse whispering. This technique, made famous in a Hollywood movie, is often seen as a modern technique. But horse whispering has been around for centuries, They just didn't boast about it. That was because they were thought to be witches. Witches were executed in a variety of ways. But after a French horse whisperer in the 18th century was burned at the stake along with his horse, others kept quiet. There's no record that horse whisperers were ever burned in Lewes. We were too busy burning humans. But the craft stayed below the surface. Because Lewes was known for being a town of witchcraft. That's a story for another day. But whispering is alive and well in Lewes. The horse. A part of Lewes history from Saxon times to this very day. We've talked horses today. How the Lewes Hunt tears down the high street on Boxing Day. How the Prince Regent risked his neck by driving a coach and four down Keir Street. And how the old Lewes Race Course at one time flourished, but today is lost. Thankfully, not forgotten. Oh, exhausting. I feel like a drink. No pub up here. Whoa! Well, there you are. We've shown this week episode 3 and 4 of the Bloody Past, and next week we will move on to episodes 5 and 6. It's in 8 parts, so we got another couple of weeks to go. But it does give the background to Lewes and some of the things that, if you live here, you should know. Absolutely. Right. Well, as we are waiting as usual, as we approach 10:30, waiting for Melissa to appear so we can have our usual weekly chat. And it's always a joy whenever she appears, because she's a very articulate lady. And let's just remind ourselves, because this is also proving quite popular, for just 2 minutes, what it's like looking down on Lewes. Now, there you are. There's some an angle that perhaps you haven't seen it before. Now, we've had an interesting morning, and we had 2 young people here. who were just setting out on life. They were here to go to a wedding, and the reception was held at Pelham House, which is just at the back of this hotel, and is actually built by the same people. So we pointed out in the fireplace just behind me, there is the initials engraved TP. And many people, of course, made the basic assumption that it's Tom Paine. Not a bit of it. It was actually Tom Pelham. The Pelhams being a very important family here from almost the time of the Conqueror. And they moved out of here, and it became a coaching inn just to this other mansion where the family lived for almost 200 years non-stop. And now it's a wedding venue, but still a beautiful, beautiful house. And really, I suppose, if you want to have a really nice backdrop to your wedding, then that is the place to go. Right, you are. Now, while we're waiting, I wonder if what we might do is just remind you who the Mirador team are. Well, that's our team. Yes, what a shower. But nonetheless, they have all got substantial backgrounds in either their field or broadcasting. So we're not just a bunch of dumb animals sitting waiting to crow or grunt or meow or moo. We know a little bit of our trade. Now, let's see what else we might have that we're really looking for fillers, but that's okay as well. Now, there's always some, what should we say, not controversy, but some unhappiness, if you like, that Lewes is the county town gets a lot of favourable treatment, but that in fact there is an equally important community at the base of the Ouse, the River Ouse, and it is largely neglected. And the planners screwed it up by putting a ring road around and cutting off the centre of the town. But it's fighting back bit by bit, and it's beginning to rejuvenate. So where is it? Well, it's New Haven, of course, and here it is. there we are. The little bit substantial town in many ways. It is the gateway to France, to the continent. It has a ferry which has been plying between here and Dieppe for many years, and we hope that come October there is some special celebrations going on surrounding the chateau in Dieppe, that there is a link between Lewes and Dieppe and the chateau, and our good friend Paul Miles, who is responsible for a good many things that take place in, or did take place in Lewes. Most famously, I think the return of the Kiss, the sculpture by Rodin in the year 2000. But Paul is in contact with the mayor of Dieppe and the curator of the chateau and its museum to do some special celebrations, and we hope that, excuse me for hiccups, Mirador will be at the center of them, that we will actually be able to bring our programs from Dieppe for part of that week, and that we are able to bring the chateau's celebrations to you, and make us all feel a part of this very special occasion. So there you are. That is the way that it is. And that the reason that I got onto that was because you can still get the you can get the ferry from New Haven to Dieppe. It's about a 4-hour crossing as opposed to the very short one out of Dover, but nonetheless, it's nice to sit back and have a glass of wine and enjoy traveling by sea into the now you don't go into Dieppe Harbour. At one time in my early days here, you would actually go into the harbour itself, and the ferry would tie up against a quay, and you could literally walk from the ferry and onto the train and onto Paris. And those days have gone. But they put the quay to good use, because it is dotted with lots of lovely restaurants where you can get very typically French meals, but mostly lobsters. And a lobster lunch is rather nice when you, particularly if you can see from the ferry, all the various restaurants waving their lobsters in the air and saying, "Come and eat me." You only caught this morning. There are other magnificent restaurants in Dieppe, and I suppose really that is the difference between a big difference between Dieppe and Lewes. Is we do not have magnificent restaurants here. We got two rather nice ones. I forget what the little one is called on the School Hill. Not School Hill, on Station Street. But there is a coat. It is part of a franchise. The food is still pretty good, and the atmosphere not bad at all. That we don't have the same. We're very good on pub food, incidentally, just in case you think that I'm decrying the food outlets. But mostly, if you want a meal here, is unless it's a pizza or a pasta place, you would go to a pub with only a couple of restaurants. In Dieppe, you go to half decent restaurants, that wouldn't think of 8 passengers as muster in Dieppe. But here they would be really first-class restaurants, and it's rather nice to go over. And in fact, I don't take much holiday nowadays. Somebody's got to look after the shop. But I do actually try to get over and for 3 or 4 days to Dieppe and stay, partly because going back 50 years or so when I first went to France, is the whole idea of having a brandy and coffee all in one at breakfast, a croissant, is just is a lovely thought, a lovely idea, and that's what I do. I do actually go to half decent restaurants, and there is one particularly, I don't know its name, but you have to take whatever it's got on offer. And that's very typical of a lot of French establishments. This is what we caught today, or this is what we have today, and this is what we're offering you today. So you take it or leave it. And 9 times out of 10, it really is worth taking because it's excellent. Anyway, that is New Haven, where the ferry leaves for Dieppe, and Dieppe, where you're always made welcome. Incidentally, just historically, if you go to Dieppe, you will find that there is plenty of recognition of Canadians. And my wife, who is Canadian, was very appreciative of the fact that Dieppe would honor Canadians because it was a Canadian contingent that sailed out of New Haven for Dieppe for the famous Dieppe raid, which was the forerunner of the landing in Europe of the main force, and it was there to test the waters, and it was a disaster. The Germans were waiting for them. They picked them off. They imprisoned, took as prisoners of war, a lot of them, and a lot of them were killed. But the French have never forgotten, and the maple leaf is seen in the streets. There is a memorial to an unknown Canadian soldier, and quite often at the entrance to the harbour they have a floral display, and that floral display has at its heart the maple leaf, and so when you go to Dieppe, particularly towards the end of the summer, you realize just how much the gratitude of the French people towards the Canadian soldiers, many of whom lost their lives, and the rest were thrown into prisoner of war camps from the famous and the disastrous Dieppe raid. Right, yeah, as they say. Hang on. Yes, that's okay. You're not seeing that. No, you're not. I'm just checking. Shall we? Now I haven't done this for a little while, and it's time that I did. So here is those of you who know me or regularly watch this program know very well that I suffer from Parkinson's, and that I try very hard to slough it off and to tell it to get lost. And the other day I took a receipt of delivery of a little scooter. Because my walking is beginning to be affected by Parkinson's. It is a disease that unfortunately makes life a little bit worse for you each year, and it's affected by walking. So I've now got a little scooter, but I only had it for 2 days and it broke down. And hopefully the part for it is going to arrive today, and I shall soon be back mobility, as they say. But I think that the Parkinson's is not particularly noted, perhaps because it's older people it strikes, but it's had many famous people who it has struck and who have done like I have, is fought back. Well, a bit of a truncated intro to this morning's. It's Sunday morning, you see, and my fingers are not used to a Sunday environment. I didn't get up until 7 o'clock this morning, but that doesn't mean to say that I'm not getting up at 5 o'clock to continue with Mirador Television from the White Hart Hotel. The reason that I've said that I'm getting up still early is because this is just about Parkinson's. And despite the fact I got Parkinson's, I still get up at 5:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30, and off I trot to do a day's work on television. It's online television, Mirador Television. It comes out of Lewes, and that's where I'm broadcasting from. And it's a gorgeous Sunday morning, a wonderful Sunday morning. And there's a gentleman busy doing the garden outside. The birds are in heaven. There's a pussycat wandering around, and a gentle breeze. It's a very pleasant day. And I'm going to enjoy it. Despite the fact that I've got Parkinson's, what I do is I tell it to bugger off. And it's not helping me. At the moment, I am shuffling like an old man. And as I think I reported in my last note about Parkinson's, is a good friend looked at me in the eye and said, "Shuffle like an old man. You are an old man." And indeed, I suppose I am. But I refuse to let Parkinson's get me down. And it does, it frightens so many people. But in many ways, one of the things that you can do to fight Parkinson's, if you do have it, is to be positive about it, to tell it that it is not going to affect you. Yes, it stopped me walking, more or less. I shuffle. My back aches. I can't stand for any length of time. And in fact, on Tuesday of this week, I'm going to take a receipt of a scooter so I can go and beat up the roads and the lanes and the pavements around about Lewes at all of 8 miles per hour. But that's going to make all the difference to me, and it'll open up a whole new area of possibilities. But that doesn't mean to say that I will lose my positive approach. I will try to walk wherever I can. I will try to perform normal type of life and to keep going and do my television stuff and so on. Sometimes I'm quite funny first thing in the morning because I do lose my train of thought. Parkinson's does that a bit to you. I'm not suffering from dementia. I'm not suffering from even amnesia. I'm not suffering from any of those things. But age and the combination of Parky does actually take away a bit of your quality of life. I've always prided myself on being fairly articulate, having a reasonable command of the English language. And sometimes it imposes on that. And that really does piss me off. But nonetheless, I still tell it to get lost. A lot of top-notch people have Parkinson's. It's not to be afraid of. We had a little reception for the coronation in the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, and amongst the guests was a friend of mine who's just recently found out that she's got Parkinson's, and it bothered her for the longest time. But she is now beginning to adopt a positive attitude, and she is beginning to say to it, "Hey, you're not going to get me." And that's what I do. I say, "Hey, you're not going to get me." And I'm happy to say that an old colleague, Jeremy Paxman, and some of his other established and well-known people, far better known than me, have started a blog designed to help people who have got Parkinson's. This isn't designed to help anybody, really, other than let me sound off about it. It is not going to get me. I am going to fight it to the bitter end. I'm 83 now. And so how much longer have I got? Who knows? Who knows? I feel sprightly today. I might fall off my scooter tomorrow. No, I'm not going to go and drink drive. But whatever I do, I will maintain my positive attitude. And that positive attitude does depend to some extent upon looking fairly regularly at the advances that are made in Parkinson's research. As I said before, it tends to be lost amongst the appeals for all sorts of other charities and research organizations, particularly cancer, and perhaps that's rightly so, and partly because Parkinson's tends to strike later in life. Not exclusively so. There are some young people who have it, but it does tend to strike later in life, and as a consequence, it doesn't get the same attention that some of the things for children and animals and so on gets. But that doesn't mean to say that we must give in to it. No, indeed. We must not give in to it. So this is not an appeal, although by all means send a few bob to Parkinson's. They continue to try to find new ways of beating it. I take about 5 pills, and I hate it. Oh dear. And at 5:30 in the morning, taking a pill that you don't like isn't particularly a great thing to do. But nonetheless, what I would like to say to people is, look, understand Parkinson's. I'm lucky. I don't do this. Some people are uncontrollable. I had a friend in London who was like that. It varies on how it hits people, but try to be as understanding as you can, particularly if it's a motor bit that goes. When I shuffle, I have to say to friends, hey, slow down. I can't go as fast as you along the high street. Most of them are pretty good about it. The odd one strides on and leaves me trailing in the wake. But generally speaking, we need to be positive. We need to have a go at this and see if we can actually beat it. Beat it into the ground, because it's a nasty, vicious disease. And it strikes without you even knowing it. And that's the nasty bit. Anyway, let's end on a nice positive note. We are very much into the broadcasting on a Sunday morning, just about Parkinson's. I'm going to get dressed in a minute. I'm going to go for a pint at lunchtime with a good friend of mine, a political friend, and we tear everything apart and put it back together again and have great fun doing so. So until I decide to get up again and do a nice little rant about Parkinson's, toodle pip. Toodle pip. Well, there you are. That's the appeal for Parkinson's. And believe me, it was not Melissa who looked me in the eye and said, you are an old man. She may think it, but she doesn't actually say it. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Keith. How are you?
Not too bad at all.
Oh,
you?
Sorry. Well, I just got up, Keith. What can I say? Wait, let me get a better view here. Okay, there we go. Now I can see it.
Isn't it nice, though, with modern television, that you can roll out of bed and within 2 minutes you're on the air? In the old days, it took us an hour to just put the makeup on.
Yeah, I remember. I probably should spend a little more time doing that.
Oh, no. Oh, you look wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Well, thank you, Keith.
Just while you were still in Slumberland earlier this morning, we, as you know, the main thrust of Mirador being in the White Hart is so that we can just grab people in the corridor. And we grabbed 2 young people, they were about 22, 23, who were in Lewes actually for a wedding. And they were very interesting. They'd just come out of uni. They'd done a little bit of their first venture into business and working, and they were a delight. So we've had quite an interesting morning this morning.
That sounds great. Sounds good to bring young people in to get their perspective.
Absolutely. Now, I got my scooter, and I got 2 bottles of beer, and I aimed at the brewery, and the bloody thing broke down.
Oh, no.
So we're one step nearer, and in fact, the part is supposed to arrive today by courier. So hopefully, I will be back on track. But it can only happen to me. You know, you get a brand new vehicle, and the first thing that happens is it goes AWOL. But speaking of which, the young brewmaster himself, Connor, what adventures did he get up to this last week?
Oh well, he interviewed the lead student in the Tiananmen Square protests, Wang Dan. He interviewed him yesterday, and so it was really a fascinating interview to kind of recount what happened in Tiananmen Square and some of the tensions going on right now in China, and a lot of their harassment of American Chinese, especially American Chinese who are activists against the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. And so he had that interview. He's going to have an interview with Misty Copeland, my favorite ballet dancer. I'm so excited. I was going to ask if I could be his assistant so I could be there to meet Miss Misty. She really broke the mold of ballet. Ballet dancers always had this. There's a certain image that they have. Very thin, very straight, short, because they can't be taller than their partners. When I was growing up, I danced, but I was too tall for the partner, so my career just imploded at that point. But she didn't allow that to happen. She was a very muscular, athletic person, and she just powered through and became the prima ballerina of the American Ballet Theater. So very inspirational person. So he'll be speaking with Misty. So he's had some really interesting interviews. He also spoke to an F-13 Marine pilot last night. So he's just really gathering a lot of inspiration from various people and in his journey. So he's doing great this week.
And that's great. And how much closer is he to actually joining the Marines?
Well, they're going to put him into the officer class in January. It was going to be in September. Now it's January. That gives him more of an opportunity to prepare, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So, and then we're planning a trip to Tokyo, probably maybe sometime in September. So, yeah.
Nice. Going in the opposite direction this time.
Yeah. But we were planning to go to Tokyo in May of 2020. And of course, COVID hit. So that stopped those plans. And so we're going to pick them up this year before he leaves.
Is there any reason other than NHK that you should go to Tokyo?
No, we just, he's been there so many times, and it's an instant tour guide. And it's a fascinating culture, and I figured I have a tour guide. Might as well use it. So we've always been wanting to go, and I had studied a little bit of Japanese through that cute little app, Duolingo, with the little owl face. So it was very cute. I was really able to learn. I had really started to progress. It was very exciting. So I'll have to go back and renew my memory on that. So.
It's amazing how these things help.
Yeah.
I can remember when I was about 12 or 13 in what is now called vinyl, a record, 78 revolutions per minute, I think, on a gramophone that you wound up like this. And there was a series of records teaching you Italian. And I can remember one little phrase from all those years ago, La Famiglia nel Salotto, which I learned from this
was that the family that was yeah, okay. It's cute. Yeah, they always have some kind of family. I know when I studied Russian, it was Ivan Ivanovich and Anna Petrovna. Those are the two characters. Ivan Ivanovich.
But actually, just to pick up a little bit of a language, these apps or whatever are quite good. They do help.
Yeah, they do. They do. If you have to be dedicated. Every morning on the train, I did about a half an hour of Duolingo, and I learned a lot. It was great.
Yes. I mean, I must say that sometimes you take customs men by surprise when you offer your passport and look at him and say, "Could I buy 2 ice creams, please?" But
yeah. Yeah, the ice cream in Italy is very good. So.
Oh, indeed, it is. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure whether I'm going to offend you, but we once again, our politicians here are busy talking about all sorts of silly nonsense when the world around them is burning. But one of the things was is that there's a little bit of a suggestion that there is a bit of sexual abuse in Parliament, and I said, the thing is that it's a bit different now to the way it was then, and that I can remember taking my wife and daughter to Italy on holiday, quite a number of years ago. Well, my daughter was only 14, and she came up to my mother and to her mother and my wife and said, "Mum, I've just had my bottom pinched." And of course, the Italians in those days were notorious for doing that. And she looked at my mother and sort of almost said, "I've now come of age." Nowadays, I rather think that is not the view that's taken. But in those days,
yeah, that's definitely not the view that's taken. Although, have you ever had your bottom pinched?
No.
By a man? By a man?
No.
What would that feel like? Yeah. Well, it's funny because a dear friend of mine, we went to a dance club. It just reminded me of that. We went to a dance club, and we're all having a good time. Then he takes me aside. He's like, "Some man just pinched my bottom." I'm like, "Oh." And I got a little bit offended. He didn't pinch mine.
Well, as a matter of fact, I've always had great difficulty in even persuading ladies to pinch mine. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's a little violating, I guess.
Now, this morning, one of the pictures in, I think it's the Financial Times, or certainly one of the major newspapers, shows Joe Biden flat on his backside because he tripped over a sandbag yesterday, I think, at a university ceremony that he'd been invited to. But really, I just mentioned that because we do like you to bring us up to date with the political situation and the social news from the United States, because as we often discuss, is much as we think we know what's going on in another country, we don't really, and it's very important that you actually let us know, give us a bit of insight.
How do you trip over a sandbag if you have a team of people working with you to make sure you don't trip over sandbags? Wouldn't they just put a sandbag right in front of them?
I bet they did. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get the boss.
Yeah, we need to check the staff there. Okay. I'm a little confused, but let's see. Our debt ceiling problem. They've come up with some kind of a solution. From what I heard, one of the solutions was they're not going to. They're going to in the budget they wanted to give more funding to our Internal Revenue Service, our tax service, for audits, because a lot of people are shirking taxes. Well, we took that out of there because we want people to shirk taxes so that we'll have less revenue to balance the budget. That doesn't make much sense now, does it? But if you have a lot of multi-millionaires and billionaires around, of course they don't want to be audited. Anyway, yeah, we've got some budgeting problems and debt ceiling problems and not paying back debt or paying back debt with more debt and more debt. It's just the craziest thing I've ever heard. I mean, you're going through the same, you're going through similar problems.
Absolutely.
There's no responsibility. Guaranteed, if the people on these staffs of these organizations and the banks were held liable for those debts, there wouldn't be any of this nonsense going on.
Yeah,
But anyway,
quite.
yeah. We don't have any gold reserves to pay our debts, so we're just going to promise more debt and raise the ceiling. How many times we raised the ceiling? 70 times? Come on, guys. It's ridiculous. But we're going to have to feel a lot of pain in order to balance the budget. That means you got to bring in more revenue. What does that mean? Taxes. So you got to bring in more revenue, and you have to cut your spending. That's what we do with our home budgets. We don't go out and spend more when we lose our jobs, right? Or we don't have money coming in. It don't make any sense. We need to send calculators over to Congress. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Well, minus 2 cents.
Now, let's talk about the 3 people that are likely to make a pitch for running for president. But I think your favorite that really that sends you into paroxysms of either laughter or anger is DeSantis in Florida. Where's he standing at the moment?
Well, he's campaigning. It's just that, he could have been a great candidate, if he weren't against gay people. And don't sit there and tell me he's not. The legislation coming out of Florida is outrageous. It's crazy. I just don't understand what happened to Florida. And while people are just sitting back scared to say anything. Are you serious? Try that stuff in New York and see what happens. It's nonsense. Stand up. Stand up and be counted. Stand up and give your opinion. Don't let some crazy little woman up in northern Florida decide that the statue of David is, oh my God, there's something wrong with it. Could you imagine complaining about the statue of David? An art teacher teaching kids about the statue of David. Oh my God, he has private parts. Oh my God. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's what they're complaining about in Florida?
And that's how bad it's getting in Florida, is it?
It's nuts. It's crazy. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but if in fact DeSantis is playing to the people in Florida at the moment, and you rightly sort of say that they're behaving in a strange way, and it wouldn't apply to much of the rest of America, why is he going down this route?
Because he's egotistical. He wants to be president. I can be president. Hey, I'm slick. I'm a slick former military attorney. That's just ego. That's all.
Right. And we haven't heard much from Donald Trump. Where does he stand at the moment?
Well, they're slugging it out. Who knows? He'll make some kind of a deal, cut some kind of deal. It's never what's good for America. It's never really, or maybe it's their distorted view of America, where I win and everybody else loses. That's not the point, guys. The point is not to just, you're supposed to govern an entire 50 states, but, well, the other side is just as bad. The progressives are kooky. It's just a different kind of kooky.
Yes. Now, one of the things that has been expressed is that Biden is now getting on, and would he run again? He says he's going to. Is that still the situation?
As far as I know, nothing's changed. The Democratic Party is not. They're so stupid they won't let anybody else in. I don't know why. I mean, the Republicans. I don't know. I can't speak for that side either. I'm neither. I just sit back and watch the nonsense.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's going to be the one running. Was it Robert Kennedy Jr. was talking about a run, and I thought he was an interesting candidate, but they just dismissed him. So okay, we either have Trump.
He's not out of the running now, is he?
Well, I mean, you don't hear much about him.
Yeah.
So there was also Nikki Haley, who was former U.S. representative to the United Nations that Trump had put in place. She's kind of fizzling. So I don't know. We're doomed.
In fact, one of the great should say, objectives, if you like, which is not the right word for it, but for several years was to have a woman president. There is no candidate, real serious candidate this time around.
No, I mean, not that Nikki Haley isn't serious. She's just not dynamic. She's not dynamic enough to. Well, not that Hillary Clinton was. She was just put in She was just put in place by the party. There's no dynamic there. She was a dud. That election was hers to lose. Seriously, she crashed and burned. What was her slogan? I'm with her. What kind of a slogan is that? Yeah, I'm with her. Yeah. Not inspirational at all. Only thing she did was just defend herself against accusations. The whole campaign, it was a joke. It was such a joke. But they sat back and figured that they could win, so they didn't even run a real campaign.
Yeah.
It was a joke.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's always a big danger in politics is to ignore the obvious, as it were.
Yeah. They definitely did.
Yeah.
They definitely. They ignored the discontent, and they fueled it. So there you go. But anyway, right. So what's happening in the UK politically?
Is at the moment. I had my rant this morning, just as you had yours a moment ago, and that is that they keep on going after how the rules of Parliament have been broken, and they totally ignore the fact that we've got still got inflation, we've still got a war, we've still got cost of living problems, we've got energy problems, and so on. All those things don't matter because basically they're all offended by what Boris did or didn't do, and so
he's still talking about that. You're still talking about that. You know why they're talking? But you know why they're talking about that? Because they don't want to do anything about the real problems. That's really what it is.
I think you're absolutely right.
And they don't have solutions.
Yeah. So you really hit the nail on the head for this part of the world. I think that, and I mean, actually, I must say that the people we've had in here talking about it do say, well, it's not just here, not just in the UK, that it's worldwide that we've got this sort of malaise amongst politicians. And well, part of the reason that I think that this happens is we don't have leadership. Right. And I don't know, rightly or wrongly, is when I look at the United States, and this is why I'm always very anxious to have you set me right if I'm wrong, is that that's true of the United States as well, is lacking leadership.
Yeah, it really is. Everybody's all in for their own good. So there's no leader that's going to say, all right, I'm going to run for 4 years and I may not win re-election, but I'm going to do the best that I can for my country because I love my country. When do you ever hear that?
Yeah.
I don't remember ever hearing that. It's like, oh no, this is
our politicians either. I mean, because our constitution isn't totally written, we're able to get ourselves into a real fug. We can turn everything on its head because we don't have a chapter and verse the way that you do to say this is the way it is. Yeah,
right.
And that's what's happening at the moment. And of course, Labour is dancing up and down. And believe me, socialists tend not to change their spots. So the Labour Party has said, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do the other. And it all sounds Shangri-La. My goodness me, how stupid you would be if you voted against this, except it's going to add 3% to everybody's income tax.
Well, it's interesting, Keith, you talk about socialists. In America, we think you're socialists. We do.
Right
we think that the Tories are socialists because they support an NHS.
Yeah.
In America, if you were here, you'd be on your own. Good luck.
Well,
make it your own. Health insurance? Please. There's no health insurance. Like there's health insurance for very old people and there's health insurance for very poor people. People in the middle, got to find your own.
Yeah.
So we do. We have a very different view about what socialism is.
Yes.
You know?
But mind you, is that if the Tories, or anybody else for that matter, talk about any sense of let's privatize any part of the NHS, is they are faced with such a multitude of, you can't touch our sacred NHS, etc., etc.
Do you want a system like ours?
No, but I don't want an NHS that is first of all, the bureaucracy is huge, and as a consequence, it can't manage the health service. Let's not say the NHS; it can't manage the health service. And the other thing is that I think that everybody is a bit tired that people can go and get, for instance, free boob jobs and that sort of thing. I don't think that was the intention of the NHS when it was set up. So
that's elective surgery. That's not allowed. You pay for that yourself.
Absolutely, but no, and there is outrage if anybody suggests that we should look at things differently.
So wait a second. So, is it for a woman who's gotten a mastectomy?
No, anybody. I mean,
so if you wanted a boob job, you can go get a boob job.
Yeah, more or less. I say
please
more or less.
don't do that. It wouldn't look good. I don't think you'd fit in your jacket, but that could be changed. I mean, that could be something. That could be something the Tories can stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you actually. I'm always very anxious to find a script that I'm being asked to read. Where there is a side thing is he puffed out his chest.
But so some of the things that you complain about, why can't they fix that?
Well, because for the same reason as you suggested, there are things that Congress or the president can't fix because of the system. I mean, it transpired the other day that it was a senior civil servant, and in fact, the head of the Civil Service Union, who actually managed to make sure that Liz Truss lost the. She was a member of Parliament for what I don't know, 60 days or something. So that it was a civil servant who actually manufactured her downfall. Now, I'm not saying that she should have stayed. That's not the issue. But the mere fact that an unelected official can be so powerful that he can undo a prime minister, I find very frightening.
Yeah, well, and that's what happened. Look at the sandbag. You know, there you go.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. You're beginning to convince me that somebody actually did put it in his path.
I just can't see. You have to understand. They clear the area, right, for the president. They make sure the president is in a safe environment. He has Secret Service agents. Why couldn't somebody see that he had a sandbag in front of him?
Now listen, we've only got a few minutes left, and one of the things.
Oh, good, because my phone's about to die, so I'm just.
Oh dear. Well, if you can spend a couple of minutes, because one of the important things that we get from you is that you're taking a master's degree in the people who are impaired, and you said when we were putting back. This program together, you said you would like a little time each week to be able to have your say on this because it's something close to your heart. So the 2 or 3 minutes that you've got from your phone, now's it's time to start.
Well, it's interesting because while I was waiting on the sidelines to come on, I was listening to your discussion about Parkinson's, and I really admire your gumption. And I don't have Parkinson's, and I don't have any serious disease, thank goodness. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't at some point end up with something. But what I really admire about you is you have this assumption that you will not let it stop you. You also have an assumption that it's a very, very horrible thing. And I'm sure it is. I guess what I would say is I would continue to think of it as something very beatable for you. And I would focus more on that than how horrible it is. That would be something that I would do if I had it.
Yeah.
I would be like, no, I got to take inspiration from Keith, and this is definitely beatable. This is not going to stop me. And quite frankly, it's not as horrible as everybody says from my experience. So you personalize it. You know, it may be horrible for someone else, and you always wish that it's not. You know, if somebody's really shaking, as you mentioned, you want to kind of wish for them the best.
Yes.
Like Michael J. Fox. I think Connor had an opportunity to, well, he unfortunately can't because he has a military thing that he has to attend, but he really almost had, well, he might still have the opportunity to interview Michael J. Fox. He definitely has the movement issues. But
Yeah,
just,
absolutely. And he is one of the flagship people.
yes.
But just before we actually get too far into is my view is it is a horrible disease. I mean, it frightens the hell out of people, and I know that several people have said to me when they found out that they've got it is that they are stunned and they almost. I, on the other hand, from day one, have told it to bugger off.
That's the difference. So think about it. The day before they got the diagnosis, right?
Yep.
They were not as horrified as they were the day after. So simply a diagnosis completely changed their lives upside down. Even though they're still the same person, they're still, you know what I'm saying? It's not like all of a sudden it just increasingly got worse in one day. A lot of it is in the mind and how you approach it, which is why I so admire how you approach it. You know, and you're such an inspiration. You know, you talk about Michael J. Fox being an inspiration. You're sitting there right now. You're not letting it stop you. It doesn't matter if you have a bad day. Everybody has a bad day. I'm going to get up. I'm going to continue. I don't care. That's fantastic. That's exactly how you have to deal with this kind of a disease. Any disease. Any disease. You can't let it defeat you. You can't. Because if you let it, it will. It will.
It has provided me with one or two amusing moments along the way. Mm-hmm. When I first went for physiotherapy, they taught me how to sleep on my side so that at such times I may have difficulty getting out of bed, I could roll over and get out. And this very lovely sort of 30-something physiotherapist said to me, which side do you sleep on, Keith? And I looked her in the eye and said, it depends who I'm sleeping with, dear.
I was expecting that comment, Keith.
And the other time that is that I think that somebody said to me, what are you going to do when you start to shake? And I said, go to the pub so that I blend in with absolutely everybody else.
Yeah, right. And you know, there's always a chance you won't shake.
Well, my standard phrase is that when I go into a pub, is I actually try hard to make people think that I am drunk, so that it hides the shaking. Whereas a lot of the other people in there are trying hard to pretend that they're not drunk to hide the shaking.
That's great.
As usual,
but just such an inspiration.
Delight to have you as always, and you always. I mean, in many ways, as they say, everybody's got a story. Your life is so interesting, and the life of Connor is so interesting. And because there is this wonderful, wonderful relationship, which I think is where you're an inspiration of your relationship with you and your son, I get excited just listening to your diary of your weekly activities. So keep it coming. Keep it coming.
It's a diary of his activities. I didn't have any.
Well, Mum gets so carried away with him that she's just as exciting. Thank you, darling, and we'll talk to you this time next week. And hopefully, my little scooter will be fixed, and I will be down to the brewery.
Very good. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a great day and a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, Melissa. Well, there we are, Melissa Conti from New York, a vital and bubbly lady. Way back in 1990, when I was told that I would be the anchor in London to her hosting in New York, as they said, now, Keith, you can't be too serious about things because Melissa is the anchor in New York and she is very, very bubbly. Well, she was bubbly then and she's bubbly now. And it's just great to have her on Mirador because she gets me carried away with her enthusiasm. And I'm sure she does you. Anyway, it is time to go. It's the end of the week. Next week, we shall start again. Hopefully on Monday, we will start with the 2Bs and get some background into the workings of either the Crown Court. Oh no, I think actually they did say that that they were going to tell us a little bit about the background workings of the police, which will be quite interesting. But also the stories of some of the cases that they've come up with in front of judges in their own careers. That's how we start the week, and from there it goes downhill. So let's say cheerio, toodle pip, and see you Monday morning. Bye.
Thank you.